Okay? Rule number 3, you left the state of Louisiana as evident by your arrest in New York. How do you plead to that charge?
I want to plead with a statement.
Guilty or not guilty?
I want to plead guilty with a statement.
Okay. The next violation is that on or about November the 24th of 2020, you committed the offenses of aggravated assault / domestic abuse, second-degree kidnapping, and aggravated second-degree battery, resulting in your arrest of December the 20th of 2020. How do you plead to that?
Not guilty.
Okay. And well, let me finish. I didn't read the rest of that paragraph. On June the 27th of 2020, the charge of second-degree battery was null pros. Number 10, have failed to make payments to your DOC fees or in arrears in the amount of $2,205. How do you plead to that?
He pleads not guilty to that.
Okay.
With a statement.
Okay. Your case has been assigned to Mr. Pete Freeman. Mr. Freeman will begin our discussion today. Okay, would you answer any questions he may have? Freeman?
Okay, Mr. Seals, with regard to conditions number 4, you're pleading not guilty. You're trying to say you wasn't there at all?
Oh no.
Which one is that?
The domestic abuse battery, the second-degree kidnapping, and the second-degree battery.
Oh no.
You wasn't there, but there was a witness that said you were there also.
No. They lying on me, sir.
They lying on.
The witness
So
lying on
why
me.
would the witness lie on you?
I don't know, sir.
Okay, why would the girl tell this story? Not this story, tell what happened to her. Then all of a sudden she has to sign this little affidavit that didn't really prove much. And then, why would she lie on?
Okay, because my opinion, because I think that she believed that I was with another female and she was trying to locate me, either if it caused me to be arrested or whatever. She was trying to separate me from being with the other female. But I don't think that she knew that it was going to get me in this much trouble. But that's the only logical explanation I could come up with to why she would make up the allegation and say that I did those things to her. I did not hit her. I learned later on that she had gotten an altercation with another female.
They say that she was involved in a brawl, but there wasn't none reported to the police. Okay, about it going to New York. Why did you go to New York so quickly after that arrest?
Well, no, I was on my way to New York before all this supposed to have happened, because my sister had called me on the phone and told me that my mother was sick, which my mother is still sick right now. And so I was in the process, I was gone in New York, to my knowledge, when this had already happened. I had already left to go to New York, and by it being the holiday, I went there before Thanksgiving, and I was going to stay there till after Christmas and come back down. My utility was still on at my house, so I never not reported to my parole officer. I had a job since I was out. It would this whole ordeal was like, my parole officer never had a warrant out for me, until I guess the police contacted him or whatever and told him, about the situation that girl fabricated on me. But prior to that, I ain't never had no problem with my parole officer. They came by my job and seen me while I was working. They come by the house and check out the house.
Let's talk about New York a little bit. Did you sign conditions saying you couldn't go out of state without the permission of your probation officer?
Yes, sir.
Why didn't you get permission from your probation officer before you left to go to New York?
When my sister told me that my mother was sick, I just made plans to hightail it up. I left in my truck. I ain't even try to catch a plane. I left because my mom almost 90 years old. I left trying to just, go check on my mom. I ain't had no intention on staying down there, moving to New York, and I ain't,
I knew that what you was doing was wrong, that you needed permission to go up there. You never thought about calling him after you got up there?
Like I said, I was gonna come back. I was hoping I could have just came back and, once I checked on my mom, I was gonna come back after Christmas. I said, well, since I was up there, I was gonna spend the Christmas with the family, with my mom, and then I was gonna come back to Louisiana.
I have no further questions, Maribel.
Now we're gonna hear from Miss Sandy White, the sister of Mr. Seals. Ms. White?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am. Are you Ms. White?
yes, I am.
Would you introduce yourself and tell us what it is you'd like us to know?
Yes, my name is Sandy White. I'm the sister of Charles Seals. During the time he left New York, I had called him. Actually, I was calling him prior to the holiday season because my mom is very ill. She suffered with diabetes, and she also has other medical condition and high blood pressure. At that time, when I called Charles during the month of November of 2020, our mother, Ora Seals, she was very ill, along with a urinary tract infection that went septic. And after coming home, right after coming home from the hospital, that's when he came and she was asking for him. So me telling him that, the next thing, because he loved his mother very much. And he was here.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We appreciate your comments.
You're
Ms.
welcome.
Mary Patterson? Patterson, you're on mute, ma'am.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know.
I'm Mary Patterson. I am the victim. I'm also the one of Charles Seals, female that lived with Charles Seals, and I'm the alleged victim. And I tried to stop all this before it got this far, because actually Charles Seals was not the person that inflict injury on me. They never investigated. I gave them a name because I only had a first name. One of the persons, his first name was Angela. Nobody investigated to see who the actual person, because in the beginning I did say it, but I did it out of spite. I was angry, and the relative that took me to the she actually took me to the police department annex building on Bolton, but instead of taking me to the hospital right away, because she also what she was saying stuff like it wasn't nobody but him, but it wasn't because she saw him do anything. I later found out that she was lying. She had actually, her mother told her the reason she didn't show up in court is because her mother told her that she shouldn't go to court and swear to something that wasn't true, because they all was in the house playing cards and they found me outside already injured, and I was not injured by Charles Seals. I don't know who the other one of the, I don't know him by their last name, because I went to that house to pick up some money and they was playing cards. I went to that house to pick some money up from my a relative, my cousin. And when I came outside, everybody was in the house playing cards, but they had some people outside. And when I walked out, I got jumped. It was 2 people I got jumped by, a female and a guy.
So what you're saying, Ms. Patterson, is that you lied to the police department about?
I sure did. Yes, sir.
Why did you do that?
And I apologize for that, because I found it a way, thinking it was a way that I could get back at Mr. Seals for breaking my heart. I supported him when he came out, and I felt like he had betrayed me when he started dating other females. He forgot about me, and I just was scorned and hurt. And I just wanted a way to get back at him. But after I thought about how much damage it would do to him if I stayed with that, continued to lie that he and say that he did it, I wasn't thinking about all the time he had left on paper at the time that I did it. I wasn't thinking about the consequences that I later found out I could be arrested for making a false report. I did a lot of things that I wasn't thinking, because I was only thinking that he deserved to be punished some kind of way for my heartbreak, because I've known Charles for many, many years. We dated years ago when we were young, and he's never been a person of domestic violence. And when he came home after 25 years, I wasn't expecting him to come back home being a playboy, and I supported him as much as I possibly could in every way I could. And then once he got on his feet, which he got on his feet, he's re-entered society pretty fast. He seemed to have forgotten me. And that's all I can say is I apologize to the court. I tried to stop the warrant. Once I did it, it was like a few days later, I went back.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask you a question, Ms. Patterson. So he didn't do it. So you signed affidavit saying he didn't do it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so then you lied to police again when you went in there and pointed and said, this is the true statement, which was your original statement?
I never pointed. I never told them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Seals, is there anything you'd like to say before Ms. Brown wraps it up?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that since I've been out on parole, I haven't been involved with no drugs. All I did was come home and work, and my family was trying to get me up to move up there to New York, but I started that I could be independent and do as a man what I was doing as a young man and be independent on my own. So all the things I did get out, and I managed to buy me a truck, furnish the house, refurnish my mama house and renovate my mama house. I did everything that, I wasn't, all the time my parole officer come around, it wasn't nobody hanging on my porch or at my house, drinking or nothing like that. I went from the iron yard where I worked at to home every day. Since the time I've been out, I never engaged in any type of criminal activity. I did my best. She had me right. I did spend my time with females, and I thought that was more than me riding around with dudes, and so I said, well, I have female friends. I used to tell her, so I'm guilty of having a lot of female friends, but I wasn't trying to hurt nobody or cause no ruckus like this here because of that. I just found it, if I stay away from, other guys that wasn't employed or working like myself, that I'd be, but with that being said, that's all I have to say, sir.
Thank you very much. Ms. Brown?
Yeah, a few things we need to clear up, gentlemen. The first being the statement, the very first statement that you showed, Mr. Seals, the very first page. When you asked him if those items were correct, I want to clarify something. That the hourly wage income was, I think, $9 an hour or something. Are you
Yeah.
looking at your sheet? Is that showing $9 an hour?
I don't have the sheet, Mr. Brown.
What number is that, Mr. Seals?
It is showing $9 an hour.
Okay, now, Mr. Seals, that was the income he had prior to being arrested and sitting in jail. That's the first thing I wanted to make sure that we clarify. Is that correct, Mr. Seals?
Yes, ma'am.
You have not been getting $9 an hour since you've been in jail.
No, ma'am.
The other thing I want to make sure.
Ms. Brown, that question is pertaining to his employment prior to incarceration.
Okay, because I couldn't see it clearly. It wasn't large enough on my screen, but I could see the $9, okay? The second thing, thank you, Mr. Roche. The second thing I wanted to clarify, Mr. Seals, how long have you been in jail on these charges?
17 months.
Okay, so you notified the parole board by way of a letter from me on May 30th of 2021 that you had been in jail for a substantial amount of time and you were seeking to be released pending them getting the file from the police and bringing it into court. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you even considered, I want to make sure the board knows this, taking a plea to something that you didn't do just in order to get the case over with. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you had to sit in jail for a year and how many months?
A year and 5 months.
5 months to actually after your court-appointed attorney, which was not me, filed a motion for a speedy trial. Isn't that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And after the motion for speedy trial was filed, ordering that you have a trial within 60 days, you set for another 4 months. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because of the backlog of cases from COVID.
Yes, ma'am.
And in each of those instances, is it correct that you were offered a misdemeanor charge of disturbing the peace or resisting arrest or anything that would allow the state to justify having kept you in jail?
Yes, ma'am.
And you turned all those things down?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I want to make sure I clarified that. And I hope that Miss Patterson and Miss White have not hung up, because I don't see their pictures there anymore. The other thing, I know the board has had an opportunity to read my letter of May 30th and which I attached to the letter saying I wanted to be informed of the date and time of today's hearing. So they are aware of the things that I'm asking you about. But I want to make sure we clarify. You stayed in prison for 25 years, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On a manslaughter charge.
Yes, ma'am.
And your mother stood by you the entire time?
The whole time.
Okay, so you are one of how many children does she have?
5.
And you're the youngest.
Yes,
Ms.
ma'am.
Brown, why don't you wrap up what you want to wrap up? He's already spoken with us. We've already got the information out of him. If you want to tell us how long he's been in jail and what your argument is, go ahead and do it, okay?
Okay, all right then. Well, I was doing it through him, but okay. Mr. Seals, as you now know, has been in jail for 17 months on the charge, which another clarification, when y'all read the charge, it was kidnapping and second-degree battery. There were, I think, 4 charges listed. If you look, you'll see that the district attorney's office, even though there were those 4 charges, only pursued 1 charge, which was the aggravated battery. Mr. Freeman asked a very good question earlier. He said, why would some female come in and lie and say that you were the person who did this? Okay. After he explained that, he had the same question that the district attorney's office had. They were in fact in a position where, in order to put a case on, they had to put a witness on. And the witness that I'm talking about is not just Mary Patterson, who you just heard from, who said she identified him as the person, as one of the two people who attacked her because she was angry about a broken heart situation. They were also going to produce a witness who told Mary Patterson it was Charles Seals who did this to you. But that witness had no credibility. And it took literally 17 months to get to the point where Mr. Seals was ready for trial before they realized that they weren't going to be able to pursue this case. And well, I think they realized before, but they kept continuing the case because of COVID. With all that being said, if you look at the normal process that I sent to the board the day that they dismissed the charges against Mr. Seals, you will see, as I said, there was only one charge out of the 4. Number 2, you will see that Mr. Seals, when he was released from jail, was released to the address at his mother's house, not knowing that she was going to obtain Alzheimer's. So what he did is, in an effort to go see her, because of what his sister told him about her condition, he never made plans to fly there and come back, and because he didn't have that kind of situation. What he did is he drove with the idea that he would be returning in time to make his meeting with the parole office. At the time that he got to New York and found out what his mother's condition is and spent some time with her before she became a complete victim of Alzheimer's, the U.S. Marshals came and picked him up, returned him to Alexandria, and he has literally not seen her since. Mr. Seals understood that and I say this because there was, in the package that they sent me, there was a note about arrearages and how he hadn't paid. He has not had any income since he's been sitting in jail. But he came back to the family home with the idea to restore it, and he and his mother would stay there. And before she was moved to New York with his sister, Sandy White, that was going to be his permanent address. He never made an application for New York to be his permanent address. He simply went to do what any other human being would do, and that was to see his mother.
Can you wrap it up, Ms. Brown?
I will. We asked early on for a reprimand for Mr. Seals on the leaving the state without the travel permit as a technical violation. We asked for that because he didn't have a problem saying that's where they arrested me, of course, but he wanted the board to be clear that there was never any intent for him to move to New York or to not return to Alexandria prior to them coming to arrest him. Also, on the arrest, there was no scuffle, there was no fight. He came along with the officers, and as I said, he's been sitting in jail.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, and let me give one thing clear with Ms. Brown. When charges were now processed on June 27, 2022, board expedited this hearing. It's not often that you see, after charges have been now processed, that he has a hearing within 3 or 4 weeks.
That's correct. That's correct, Mr. Roche. And we appreciate that.
Thank you. Board ready to vote?
I call for executive session.
Okay. There's been a motion for executive session. Second.
Mr. Roche?
Yes.
Mr. Marabella?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Yeah.
We're back in session. Is the board ready to vote?
Yes.
Mr. Freeman?
Due to the fact that he absconded to New York without permission, I vote to revoke.
Mr. Roche?
Mr. Seals, you had ample enough time to notify your parole officer that you want to visit your sick mother. You were in New York approximately 25, 30 days before your arrest. You have a telephone, you know the number of your parole officer. You should have notified him and got permission, even over the phone. I revoke your supervision because fundamentally you have violated one of the basic conditions of your parole contract. You left the state of Louisiana without permission and did not notify your parole officer.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. You have 2 votes to revoke. My vote is likewise for the same reasons as my colleagues. Your parole has been revoked. Good luck to you, sir, Mr. Seals.
Do I go up back for parole anytime soon? Can I come back for the board? How long it be before I be able to come back to court?
I'll give you all that information.
Well, that's the look of a man and an attorney that represents a client that just got the news that he's going to be backing a life sentence. I don't have information, Rich doesn't have information on his original manslaughter case, but we've seen typically that those sentences were life sentences with opportunity of parole after 25 or a 60-year sentence. I mean, either way, in his mind, he's backing life. So he just got news that you're going back to prison for life. Now he will have another opportunity at parole, but it's going to take work. You can't just show up. You have to go through the process again because no parole board is going to want to just give someone another opportunity after being revoked. How many more years might it be? I don't know. It's just a guess, but I'm thinking in my mind maybe 5 years, but I'm really not sure. It's in some sense I feel bad because I feel like to see someone now have to go and spend life in prison, but at the same time, like the parole board said, it's just so simple to not have done it. You know the rules and the risk. Now, the things that his attorney was saying, it's interesting. We see a lot of different attorneys here. And I think the most important thing, what I've learned is when you hire an attorney, make sure you hire an attorney that has experience specifically in taking these parole board hearings. There are a small group of maybe like 5 that it seems that they're always showing up to these parole hearings. They know the parole board members. They know what the parole board wants to hear. They know all of that, and they do well. I think she put up the best fight that she could, but it's not what the parole board wants to hear. They don't want to hear kind of like a court process. She had this whole plan of like it's like we're sitting in court, and she's gonna ask questions of her client, and she tried to take another approach, which was, look, my client never even pled guilty, and you kept him locked up for like a year and a half, and then they dropped the charges. And one thing that I don't know if it was her or a public defender that got lost on me, but definitely one thing that they did right was not have him plead guilty. We have seen countless times where the inmate gets simply wrong advice, catastrophic advice from their attorneys, which is, don't worry, plead guilty to a lesser charge. As long as it's not a felony, you'll be okay. And that's not true. This moment you plead guilty, you are locked. You are almost guaranteeing. I mean, unless the parole board, is feeling very generous, that you will get revoked because it's any criminal activity. That's the language. You cannot be involved in any criminal activity or you will get revoked. And yet we see attorneys all the time tell their clients, oh, just take the DA's deal for a lesser charge. In this case, he didn't. And that was the right move. Now he sat for a year and a half because of all the different problems until, they played the game right with the DA. The DA ended up just, dropping the charges, no processing, because they didn't have a case on him or they didn't want to deal with it. But again, in his situation, because he was backing life, that was his best bet. He couldn't just take a lesser charge. And he had to wait out the game. Now, why some people choose to to maybe revoke themselves is if they're not backing life. Because let's say maybe they only have 2 years left on their sentence. It's better to maybe just revoke yourself if you think you'll be in the process for a long time, because while you're waiting for your parole revocation hearing, the time you're sitting doesn't sit into that backing up time. So if you wait a year for your revocation hearing and you only have 2 years left to serve, it doesn't count towards your 2 years. You're just wasting away. You're not getting that time. So sometimes inmates will just revoke themselves, not attend the revocation hearing, just so they can eat away at their time and get parole over with. Of course, that wasn't the case here. So, I mean, I don't know what the attorney could have done, but when we see him again, this hearing took place in 2022. So, hey, I intend to be around for as long as we can keep the channel around. So if we do see him again, we'll make sure to post it. Well, thank you for being here.
She's classified as a first felony offender. She has an adjusted good time date of April the 13th of 2023. She is current a full-time date of July 14th of 2026. She's currently serving a 5-year sentence on charges of possession with intent to distribute heroin, possession with intent to distribute cocaine, possession with intent to distribute methamphetamines, and possession with intent to distribute fentanyl. Is that all accurate, Ms. Lisette?
That's what I'm being charged with. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ms. Lisette, your case was assigned to me, so I'll begin our interview process, okay? My notes reflect, if my addition is correct, that you're 46 years old. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been in prison on this 5-year term?
Since July 19th of 21.
Okay, so how long is that?
I've been here almost 14 months.
Let's talk a little bit about the drugs. I mean, these are, I guess, as serious a drugs as you can find. You and your boyfriend were selling them out of a motel room. Is that, tell me, you're shaking your head no. So you tell me what happened.
I did not know that. I knew that he had that, and they said it was my boyfriend, but that was not my boyfriend. I was there, but I only knew about him selling crystal meth. I didn't know the amount of what he was doing. I knew about it. I had gone there. I'd gone to purchase from him that night. I was in a vehicle by myself. No drugs around me or anything like that. I've never been arrested for drugs before, ever. Never. And they arrested me. They arrested me for the same thing. My lawyer told my judge that he believed I was at the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, the man had been
Let me slow you down just a bit. What were you going there to purchase?
crystal meth. Some crystal. I was a small user of crystal. I didn't know about. I had no idea about all the other stuff, none whatsoever.
Oh, how did you know about this guy selling crystal meth in his hotel room?
I knew that he was selling. I knew that he was selling crystal meth, but I went to go purchase some.
And you say you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Sounds to me like you were going there to buy crystal meth. Is that where were you when they arrested you?
I was in a vehicle by myself inside in the parking lot and waiting on him. I was in a vehicle by myself, no drugs around me or anything around me. I hadn't even purchased yet.
Well, how is it that they charged you with something?
Because they say they charge you if you're around the people that they charge you with the same. They charge you with.
Well, you were in a car, you said, by yourself.
And he was in it, and he had his own vehicle. He had another vehicle. I was not. There was no drugs, around me. Or in the, that I was there to purchase. That hadn't, the cops come up at the time that it had just gotten there. I'd never been arrested for drugs or anything like that.
Well, Ms. Lisette, how do you explain the fact that the hotel room or motel room is registered in your name?
It was in my name?
That's right. You want to reevaluate what you want to tell us? Because I'm going to tell you one thing, and I won't speak for my other panel members. They speak
Sir,
for themselves. But if you're not being honest with me, you're not going to get a break from me.
yes, sir. I understand.
I've got a report. I've got the police report. I've seen all of this information. I've been a lawyer for 50 years. And I know cops do bad things sometimes, but they don't just arrest people who are sitting in a car outside of a motel. So I ain't buying that.
If
You want to tell me what you really were doing?
Sir,
And how you got caught? And why your name is on the hotel registration?
the Terry himself needed to have he needed to be able to rent the room and he couldn't do it. So he used my ID.
And so you aren't the innocent bystander that you pretend to be.
But
You knew he was a drug dealer.
I knew that he sold crystal. I knew about the crystal, but I had no idea the amount that he had, that he was doing. I had as God is my witness, I did not know about the heroin, the fentanyl and all that, because I've had family members die on it. So I wouldn't have never had, like when I went to court on the I guess it was on the 19th of July 21, and a judge was calling out the stuff that I was being charged with. I might hit the floor because I had no idea. I truly didn't know.
Did you plead guilty or did you go to trial?
I don't know what. I went to when the month after being in
Did you plead guilty or did you go to a trial?
I didn't go to trial because I was told I was going home if I took a probation. Or first the lawyer said probation, and it was my first time ever being doing like this. I didn't know. I was just trying to go home, so I was telling them what I pleaded guilty because I thought I was going straight home afterwards. I did because I didn't know what I was. I really truly didn't know what I was doing. I had never been in trouble before and got not. I didn't know what.
Let me stop you for just a second.
Yes. I'm telling you the truth, though.
Ms. Losette, let me stop you for a second, okay? Judge Jackson was a judge for 28 years. I was a judge for 18 years.
Yes.
Judges don't take pleas from people without telling them what it is they're accused of doing. You pled guilty to possession of heroin, which is a very serious charge, possession of cocaine, which is a very serious charge, and possession of fentanyl, which is a very serious charge. People have died from all three of those drugs on a regular basis.
Sir, and
you tell me you had no idea of anything and you just pled guilty to all of those charges?
I was just
plead guilty. Wait, stop. You didn't plead guilty to possession. You pled guilty to possession with intent to distribute those drugs.
I wanted to go home, so I'd been in for that not amount of time that I'd been in. Oh wait, and I just wanted to go home, so I said what I did. I said what needed to be said because my lawyer made me believe that I was going home, and I had never been, or I've got no charges on for drugs or anything. I wish my family could be here to explain to you guys that I did not. I was a user, and then I got clean for 10 years, and then I wound up I relapsed. And then
Let's talk about your drug use. When did you start using drugs?
About 23. I used the crystal meth, but I was never a heavy user. I just did it on and off. And then
What do you call on and off?
On like I would just do. I would go a month or two using a little bit, and then I would stop using for months. So my family would tell you that I've never been a big user of anything, but then I relapsed and I wound up going and just getting. I should not have been around. There's no doubt about it. It's God is my witness. I should not have been around. How
long had you using meth the night you got arrested?
The night I got that night, that I hadn't even purchased it yet, really. But I had just relapsed and started using it again. So I was only using it for about a month. I had been clean for 10 years. I'm married, and
Earlier you suggested to me that you didn't even know who the guy was who was in the motel room. You said he wasn't your boyfriend, even though the police report says that.
he wasn't my boyfriend.
Now, all of a sudden, we now know we pulled out of you that you gave him your ID to rent the room.
And I did that. I did that.
When did you do that?
Somewhere between, in that time frame. I don't remember when. I don't remember what day. I can't tell you what day, sweetheart. I can't. Sorry.
So
Sorry.
you had never been in that motel room before that night?
I had been in
I
his
couldn't
room.
hear you if you're talking.
Yes, I had been in his room.
You'd been in his room. He's a drug dealer. You went there to buy drugs.
Right.
So you're telling me, oh, I don't know what else he had in there.
No,
But I'll let him have why did you let him use your ID?
because he didn't have an ID to rent the room. He asked for it.
And why did you even let him do that if you didn't know this guy very well?
A foolish choice. I mean, that was stupid of me, but I did it.
Tell me, you've been in jail now for 14 months. What's the most important thing you've done, or what class or anything that you've learned while you've been in prison?
I have went through risk management and the reentry, and what I've learned by being in here without the classes is just I've grown and furthered my relationship with the Lord. To be honest with you, I want to do prison ministry when I get out of here. I wanted to do it when I was 13 years old. I wanted to do prison ministry, and but I want to do it. It's what I want to do when I get out is to focus on being able to help other women who have been through what I've gone through. I've learned patience. I have learned. I mean, when I went to court that day, I had been clean for a month and a half, and I got congestive heart failure. So I don't. Drugs are not even a choice for me anymore. I need a heart transplant, is what the doctors tell me. And so I don't. Drugs is not a danger for me anymore because I can't do it. It's not worth risking my life, even messing with the crystal meth. And like I said, I've never been a heavy user. I've been on and off. I have made bad choices and stuff like that. And that's something that.
Let me ask you this, Ms. Losette, because number one, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't necessarily believe anything you've told me so far. So I'm going to ask you this, because I believe you were aware of what was being sold and you probably were somehow involved. What do you think selling fentanyl and heroin to people do to them?
Listen, as God is my witness, man, he strike me where I sit right now. I did not know he was selling that stuff. I did not know. He kept. I had family members die. My brother died since I've been here on the fentanyl. I've known people who died on stuff. I told the judge when I seen him, I said that I would have never had no part of that. Crystal meth, yes, that is, but the heroin and the fentanyl, that's.
You obviously didn't tell the judge that because he took your plea to possession with intent to distribute heroin, possession with intent to distribute cocaine, and possession with intent to distribute fentanyl.
I did tell him when one of the last, right before I came to jail in October, when I got to go in front of him, after the seeing him the first time in court, when I thought I was getting a new court date. I knew I was going to court. I thought I was getting a new court date, and I did say that to him. I told him I would have never.
All right, Miss Losette.
God is my witness. I promise.
I think that's all the questions I have. Anybody have any questions?
I have one. Did you ever go by the name of Chery Green?
That's my maiden last name.
And I see an arrest on your record in 2005. Tell us what that's about. Negligent homicide.
Oh no! I was in a car wreck and they found me not guilty because it was an accident.
And then 2020, another possession, Schedule 2,
Wait, where, when, what?
September of 2020, or is that the one that we're talking about today?
That's the same one. It's the same that's where yeah.
All right, I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Ms. Lissette, is there anything you'd like to say before the panel vote?
I appreciate you. And you guys just know that, I made wrong choices and messing around with that person who I promised to God, I promise you on everything as Jesus as my savior, that I did not know about those. I knew about the crystal meth. I did not know. He did not put that in front of me. And maybe he didn't trust putting that kind of stuff in front of me. I did not know that he had that. I promise you on everything. I did not know whether or not you, grant me, I know you probably won't be. I'm going home soon anyway, but to know that, I have taken what I've gotten, what I've learned being in Tallulah. I've done it. Knowing that I want to be, like I said, I want to do women's prison ministry. I want to be of help, a blessing to other women. And that's what I'm going to do, regardless of anything. That's what I'm going to do. I have a great family support system at home. I've got a great church support system. And when I went to court that day, I was clean. I went in and, like I said, I thought I was getting another court date. I'd never been through anything like this. So and when I did a plea guilty, as God is my witness, I thought that I did that because they said either if I went to trial, they said you're going to be in here a lot longer. That's what our lawyer said. You're going to be here. We don't know how long you're going to be in. So I'm like, oh my God. I'll just, I plead guilty, and because she's telling me that that I'll go home, and that's what I did. I pleaded guilty so I could go home.
Did you go home?
I know I didn't go home. No, I come to jail, come to prison. But I did it thinking that. That's why I did that. If I would have known everything, I'd never been through anything like this before. So I was like, I just wanted to go home. That's all I wanted to do. So I was doing, I said, the very first time my lawyer come to me. After I went in, he said, take probation or whatever, and you'll go home Monday.
Anything else you'd like to say to the board about our vote today? I don't want you to rehash what you did, why you did it, but what is it that you'd like to say to the board about who you are today and why should we release you early?
I have done changing since I've been here. I'm a completely different person. I've got a completely different head on my shoulders from even when I came in. And I have, like I said, I have learned, and I promise on everything that there is no danger of me ever of me re-offending or whatever. There's no doubt about that. I made some mistakes, and I apologize for that. And like I said, fentanyl is a dangerous freaking drug, and so is heroin. And I would never, I've got my kids. I've got a 28-year-old son. I've got a 26-year-old, a 13-year-old, and my 5th grandkid on the way. And no way in hell would I have anything to do with those things, with those. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Ms. Lissette. Ms. Lissette, I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. I just don't believe very much of what you told us. And you had a very poor interview. You've taken a couple of good classes. I don't know that you got very much out of them. I think that until you are able to tell yourself the truth, you will continue to lie to everyone else. And I think it's very important that you accept responsibility for what you did. I'm not going to sit here and listen to you make excuses. You are in prison on some very, very serious charges. And almost everything that we got out of you, we had to pull out of you. And you're still shaking your head no. So I hope that you've got a lot more work to do. I hope that you take some classes. I hope that you can take some courses that allow you to look introspectively and see who you are, see what you did, and just accept that.
Yes, sir.
My vote today is to deny. Ms. Jackson?
Yes, sir.
Likewise, Ms. Lissette, I don't think you're ready. And I don't know that you'll ever be ready until you change your thinking. My vote today is to deny.
Ms. Reynolds?
Ms. Lissette, you know, I believe that probably coming to prison saves your life. My vote today also is to deny based on the proximity of your good time release date and the need for additional programming. I do wish you well. Good luck.
Good luck to you, Ms. Lissette.
Wow. I mean, whew, what an unlikable, in my opinion. I mean, she's just talk about denial. All the final statements of the board right there. Mr. Knotts is saying, I think going to prison saved your life. And I would agree. Who does she think she's kidding? Not to mention, she's saying, this is the first time I've ever been in trouble. Richard pointed out, he listed there, I think 4 or 5 arrests on her record. And she kept stating it over and over because that was like the one thing, for whatever reason, they weren't calling her out on. But I think Mr. Mirabella handled this hearing just a classic Mr. Mirabella hearing. He was on fire. He kind of like drew her in to just let her lie after lie after lie. It starts with, I was just in the parking lot and the police arrest. And then it comes out to, well, actually the hotel was booked under your name. Like, who are you kidding? Who are you trying to pull a quick one over? It's just ridiculous. I wish my family was here to tell you. What? Well, where are they? I don't know. I don't remember that. And even if they were, what are you saying? Man, it's scary now. Her good time date is soon, and I think she's been out now, and we haven't seen her back, which frankly I'm surprised. But if we do, we'll put her on here. But it was just the way that it went. The hearing went, trying to first, like, really, her strategy was to lie to the parole board, and it starts with, I'm just in the parking lot, and the police arrested me, and then well, your ID was there. Yeah, that was just a mistake. I don't know. It was just a mistake. And I had no idea what he was selling. This is the only thing. I mean, I took meth just recreationally. Have you ever, I don't know about, I can't recall. I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if anyone takes meth recreationally. It's like, it might start off recreationally, but it don't end recreationally. I'm not aware of it in all the different documentaries and things that I've seen, but I didn't believe a word that came out of her mouth, not one word. The idea that she insists and swears on everything important to her, that she didn't know he was selling other stuff. No, I don't believe that either. It's not, she has zero credibility after this hearing, and really just one of the worst. Well, not one of the. There were plenty of bad ones, but it's bad. It was a bad hearing, and of course she wants to be a prison minister, right? Like we haven't heard that 8,000 times, and we so often hear it by those that should be the last ones ministering anybody. But, and then she's just like denial. She's shaking her head at the board and just totally, I don't know what world or planet she lives in. It was, I only pled guilty because I wanted to go home. And Mr. Mirabella was like, are you home? No. So what are you saying? Man. If she had come in and just said, I'm an addict, I have a problem. I gave the dealer my ID because he said he'd give me, hook me up. I really didn't know what he's doing. He didn't tell me what he was doing. It was just that was the exchange, and that would be a more believable story. But it's like she didn't even take the time to think of a believable story. She just went into this parole hearing with the strategy of, I'm going to lie, and just assume that they know nothing. And that didn't work out very well. And it's quite mind-blowing that someone could actually assume that they would just pull one over. It really is. There's something in that personality that we see so often where they believe that they're the smartest person in the room, and it's like they don't have the self, they're not aware of how they appear to others. And I think that's what we just saw here. Thank you, Richard. And we can move to the next hearing.
Good morning, sir.
Mr. Duquette, would you please state your full name and your Department of Corrections ID?
Todd Michael Duquette, 336250.
Thank you, Mr. Duquette. My name is Alvin Roche, and I will serve as chairman today. To my left is Ms. Cheryl Renaza. To my right is Ms. Pearl Wise. Let me explain the process to you. I will read some information into the record. Afterwards, we will conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, one Vinoy will give remarks. If you have any family members, we'll give family members a chance to make a statement on your behalf.
Yes, sir.
At the very end, before we vote, we will allow you to make a statement on your behalf. If there's any victim opposition at headquarters or here at Southern University's Law Center, we'll give them a chance to make a statement. Do you understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Duquette, you are a second felony offender. Your offenses are indecent behavior with a juvenile, 4 counts, oral sexual battery, 1 count. You were sentenced on July 24th, 1994. You were revoked on July 2nd, 2008. Your sentence was 5 years at hard labor, each count of the indecent behavior, and 10 years for the oral sexual battery. You have a total sentence of 30 years. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Your parole date matter of fact, your parole date is March 25th, 2018. Your good time date, March 28th, 2021. And your full term date, March 23rd, 2037. Is this information correct?
I believe so, sir.
We have opposition at the hearing. Would the opposition please stand? Would you please give your full name and your relationship to this offender? Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. At the appropriate time, we'll give you a chance to make a statement.
You've been incarcerated, 11 years, with only 2 write-ups. So I want to commend you on a good conduct record. You've had a recent mental health evaluation, which indicates your mental status is within normal limits. So, considering some of the info that we've talked about, I want you to tell us why you believe you should be afforded early release.
I wish to say this, first of all, as far as my participation in faith-based, I'm a strict church member of Full Gospel. I'm one of the prayer warriors, very involved in the prayer team and the revivals they've been having around here, very much involved in ministry, and have been for, pretty much back there at Camp C and since I've been up at the main prison. But as far as why should you give me early release? Well, I don't come as if it's a right. I understand it here after 21 years of incarceration. I understand privileges, not rights, privileges. And it would be a blessing to get out there. It would be a blessing to apply what I've learned in here. It would be a blessing to help more people. It would be great to be a productive citizen. It would be great to have another chance at society. It would be great to get a chance to make up for my past crimes. I can't blame anybody but myself. I take full responsibility, have from the get-go, and I'm a changed man. As far as merit, I have conduct, I have behavior, I have heart, I have character references, but I'm simply humbly asking for mercy, because that's what it boils down to, is mercy.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, we do in the record have opposition that's been expressed. There's opposition. The sentencing judge will hear from the district attorney's office shortly. The chief of police in Baton Rouge also has expressed opposition. During the investigative process, we were unable to locate victims, but I'm anxious to hear from the district attorney's representative in that regard. We also do a risk assessment score, and your risk assessment score on the Tiger, which is a new tool we're using to assess risk, you rate moderate. You're a moderate risk to reoffend. We also do a static 99 risk assessment for sex offenders, adult male sex offenders. And in that category, it's concerning because you rate in the moderate to high category to reoffend. And you were 1 point away from being a high risk. So that is concerning to me. I don't have any other questions of you, Mr. Duquette.
Ms. Wise?
Mr. Duquette, do you have any supervision on your Texas charge? Did you full term on that charge?
On the Texas charge, I full termed in prison.
All right, thank you. That's all.
I was on detainer here.
Sir? Go ahead.
I'm sorry? I was on detainer from Louisiana while all the time I was there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But I was in prison.
Okay, so you have no supervision outstanding in Texas as parole or anything?
I went through the teen challenge. I went through the teen challenge program and graduated. And I went to the sheriff's office. He sent me to the city police, and they sent me to the lady that works with sex offenders. She contacted Miss Murphy, and then Miss Murphy told me to get with her. I did. And she said she couldn't do anything until she heard from Miss Murphy. And that was the end of that. I just lived in an apartment, got out, lived in an apartment.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. That's all I had, Jim.
Let's hear from the victim side. Brandy, would you like to come up and make a statement? Brandy? Address all your remarks to the Committee on Parole and not to Mr. Duquette.
Good morning. My name is Brandy. My family and I are victims of this inmate.
and we strongly oppose him being granted parole. In 1993, he was charged with 49 counts of sexual acts with children, and these victims were all between the ages of 8 and 12. He was charged with indecent behavior with juveniles, oral sexual battery, aggravated crimes against nature, and sexual battery. Under a plea agreement, however, he was able to plead guilty to only 5 of those crimes. He was sentenced to a total of 30 years in prison, but then that sentence was suspended and he was placed on active supervised probation with conditions. Less than 4 months later, the inmate violated those terms of his probation and his sentence was imposed. Although he was convicted of 5 crimes, there are many other victims. My family is among those other victims. In the spring of 1990, he anally raped my brother Josh, who is pictured right here, and my oldest brother Wayne. And he also did them by oral sexual battery. At the time, my brothers were 9 and 11 years old. My family was a fairly normal family, but after my brothers were raped, we were devastated. And even though these crimes happened in 1990, my family is still suffering. After he was raped, my brother Josh developed mental and emotional problems that grew and grew. And when he was in the 5th grade, he tried to kill himself. Wayne also developed mental and emotional problems, and after he was raped, and his way of dealing with it was to act out. Unfortunately, his way of acting out involved raping me. I was 6 years old. And he continued to rape me almost every night until I was 10. It should not be surprising to learn that I still have problems from all of this. In my entire life, I have never known what it is like to feel normal. I know that I now have a completely twisted view of males, and my trust in people has been ruined. My desires and abilities to have a boyfriend relationship were destroyed before they could ever develop. If this inmate would have just stayed away from my family, I think I would have had a chance at a more normal life, even after watching my mom survive a domestic violence attempted murder, which is why we came to Baton Rouge. But that chance was stolen from me. Another victim of this inmate is my mother, who had to endure the trauma of her 2 sons being raped and all the problems that it caused. That's my mom right there. What this inmate did completely traumatized my entire family and changed all of our lives forever. My mother would be here today, but she passed away. So on behalf of myself, my mom, my brothers Wayne and Josh, as well as his other victims, I ask that you not grant parole to this inmate. His victims continue to suffer, and he should have to serve the full sentence that he was given. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy.
And this man has demonstrated by his actions, because he was given the keys to the prison by Judge Irwin. Judge Irwin gave him the keys to the prison. He chose by his own actions when he violated and sexually abused a 10-year-old child in Texas. He chose to open up the jail cell. And while he said to you that he served 21 years, 10 of those years for his crime in Texas, He has served 11 years for this crime. He is in no way, shape, or form served the full sentence.
At this time, Mr. Duquette, would you like to make a closing statement?
The statement is totally false. I didn't do those things to them. I didn't do those things.
Thank you, Mr. Duquette. Is the panel ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Renaza?
Mr. Duquette, I'm really concerned by what you just said. However, let me just say this. I want to commend you on your ministry work that you do and are doing and have done in the faith-based community there in Angola. I want to commend you on your educational accomplishments. However, today, because of what we've heard here today, the risk assessment that has been conducted that puts you above the low category in the moderate to high risk, my vote today is to deny your parole.
Ms. Wise?
Mr. Duquette, my vote is to deny for the reasons already been stated. Additionally, you have law enforcement opposition, strong victim opposition, and you have a history of sex offenses.
Mr. Duquette, you have received 2 votes to deny your request for early release. I must agree with my colleagues this morning, and my reasoning is for the same reasons mentioned by my colleagues. You have received 3 votes to deny your request. Your request for early release has been denied. You have a good day.
A convicted pedophile won't be getting out of prison anytime soon after a parole board heard emotional pleas by the victim's family. The investigative unit highlighted the case earlier this week. News 2's Brandy B. Harris was at the hearing today, and it had a surprise outburst by the convict. Brandy?
That's right, Chris. The room was totally stunned when Todd Michael Duquette responded to the victim's statements, saying it was all, quote, totally false. Duquette was originally convicted of preying on 5 young boys. Tonight, while he's still in denial, a family is relieved he's still in prison.
I knew I had to do this because if he would have been granted, we'd be having future victims and having this conversation again.
Brandy Melissa stood up at a parole hearing to make sure convicted pedophile Todd Michael Duquette remains in prison for molesting children between the ages of 8 and 12 back in the 90s, including her 2 brothers.
I knew I had the courage to do it, but because his other victims couldn't be here.
After his original 30-year sentence was suspended, he moved to Texas, where he was picked up again in 1998, this time with a 10-year-old. His parole was revoked and he was brought back to Louisiana to complete his original sentence. His victims didn't even know he had a chance to get out, but the district attorney's office has been reaching out and giving them an opportunity to be heard.
But they, of course, were passionate about wanting their voices heard and this man not being able to harm any more children.
And Duquette responded to his victims and their statements during the hearing by saying it was all, quote, totally false.
This man has, since the case occurred and ever since, blamed children for his predatory acts upon them.
For him, 29 years later, to be able to pronounce my name as clearly as he did and make reference to point out me out of everything that was said, that proves his guilt.
Now, Duquette was unanimously denied parole. His full sentence won't be complete until 2037, but the Department of Corrections says Duquette is expected to be released in just 2 years due to good time. Chris?
I'm left with a real powerful mix of emotions. It's on one hand, I'm just so proud to see Brandy, Cajun Overcomer, who I feel like we've all gotten to know in the chat and in emails, and we always please go give her YouTube channel a subscribe. She's done so much in Louisiana on behalf of victims, survivors, and now to hear this and see her in action, it just gives me such a high level of respect. It's very different seeing and hearing someone who I feel like I've come to know stand up there and just fight for what's right. And then the other emotions that I have are just how sick and twisted the system is. And we knew that already. Can you imagine that a judge let him plead guilty to 4 counts and then gave him a suspended sentence? He gave him a suspended sentence, 30 years with a suspended sentence. Are you kidding me? You just can't make this stuff up. A judge like that, in my opinion, has to be investigated because there is no logical argument that one can make that would justify a suspended sentence. And guess what happens? A real shocker. He goes to Texas and then is caught with a 10-year-old. Are you freaking kidding me? The judge should be sitting in the cell with him. And if the DA agreed to that deal, I don't know. Should be sitting there too. It is sick. It's just sick. And this is part of why we do this. Because anyone with just a little bit of common sense would say, of course you don't give a suspended sentence. But when we find out about this, you say, no, it can't be true. It can't be true. I miss you're it's not possible. And everyone I tell this to who are just I've never heard of this, my YouTube channel, never seen this, and you tell them these things, they don't believe you. They say no, it's not. Then why? And really, it took someone, a survivor like Brandy, to stand up there and fight. And this story, it's just starting. This is not what we're going to go over. Some more information. The idea that he's supposed to have a 30-year sentence, which he then got suspended, and then he was not supposed to get out until 2037. But because of his good time tape, he'd be getting out in just 2 years from the time of this hearing, if you can believe that, right? But let's go see what happened as to why he didn't get out. It's going to see additional blatant corruption on Louisiana's side, albeit corruption on the good side of the law, but not the first time we've seen corruption. We've seen many times, but let's just jump into it.
A sudden change. A sex offender will not be getting out of prison after we started to ask questions about his release.
The man is serving a 30-year sentence for molesting multiple boys in Baton Rouge, and now the investigative unit and Chris Nakamoto with why his release has been blocked.
Sylvia, Michael, Todd Michael Duquette received good time while in prison for molesting young boys. He met the legal requirements to get out in just a few hours from now. But when we started asking questions, the state crawfished on his release, saying the residence plan they approved is no longer valid.
This is a face of a child predator who until Monday afternoon met the requirements to be released back into society. Todd Michael Duquette raped Brandy Melissa's relatives.
My 2 brothers.
It came to light while they were at school.
11 days before Christmas. the year it happened, one of my brothers attempted suicide during recess at school. When they asked him why, explained what happened. My other brother coped by molesting me.
In 1994, Duquette was convicted, stemming from sex acts he performed on 5 boys between the ages of 8 and 12. He was charged with 49 counts, but pled guilty to 4 of them. A judge suspended his sentence, and Duquette moved to Texas. That's where this mugshot comes in. He got caught with a 10-year-old over there and was sentenced to prison in Texas. He'd later be sent back to Louisiana to fulfill his original 30-year conviction here. Melissa doesn't think Duquette can be rehabilitated.
I'm terrified because you can't rehabilitate people like that.
Her sentiments are echoed by respected LSU criminologist Ed Shahada. When Duquette went before the parole board in 2019, they denied his parole. Shahada made it clear at the time it's very hard to rehabilitate certain predators.
You can't change your sexuality. No prison course is going to change your sexual preferences. It's something that is a unique personality disposition that tends to reassert itself throughout your life.
This letter states Duquette was scheduled to be released Wednesday and will remain under state supervision until 2038. Search of that address shows it appears to be a property that houses sex offenders. But 4 hours after we began asking questions Monday morning, the state issued this 4-sentence statement saying Duquette will not be released Wednesday. Tonight, Melissa believes prison is the only place for Duquette to keep the public safe.
I don't want another child getting hurt. But with them not keeping him where he should be till his completion, I can't say that that's not going to happen. And nobody can guarantee me that that's not going to happen.
Duquette's 30-year sentence in Louisiana didn't start until after he completed his time in Texas in 2008. The Department of Corrections says the landlord at the facility in Lacombe withdrew the housing plan. And until Duquette comes up with another one, he'll remain locked up.
So, can you believe it? On good time. And well, thank goodness, right? You have the news agency reach out, and I don't doubt for a second that our Brandy had something to do with that. Fighting to keep this monster, this cockroach locked up. And when I was talking about the corruption, it's all of a sudden the man who's supposed to house them says, "Oh, I turned down your housing." I mean, what do you think? How do you think that happened? What kind of backroom conversations happen when all of a sudden the Louisiana DOC said, "Oh my gosh, the news is finding out that we're letting this monster out for good time. For good time. We're letting him out at this point, what, 17 years early? Are you kidding me? A serial child offender who already got a probated sentence only to be caught again? And he gets good time? That's just the legislation, right? That was running at the time in Louisiana. People who write those into laws, they should all be investigated because it makes no sense. Anyone with common sense says it makes no sense. Anyone who has, I don't know, just some bit of humanity would say it makes no sense. But who would actually write stuff like that into law? That someone who does that to children, a repeat offender who gets a 30-year sentence after getting revoked because they repeated the offense, could then get out 17 years early because of good time? Good time while he's in protective custody? Who cares? They're so clueless with their own system. They don't even realize that all of these roaches, all of these monsters, all have perfect records in prison. We have seen maybe 2 that have not had perfect records, but they're pretty darn close to it. They're like lizard humanoids. They just do. Or it's because they're in protective custody. I'm not sure. Maybe a mixture of both. it was at least nice to see the professor here talk some sense, not the fancy algorithm PhDs that tell us who is a high risk and a low risk. Talking about the low risk score, Ms. Renatza bring it up. We just started using this. Remember that this hearing we just listened to was from 2019. We just started losing the risk score, and you're a moderate to reoffend. The first score, right? She had 2 scores. The first one was a moderate. There's low, moderate, and high. This guy doesn't even reach a high on those, according to those PhDs. If this guy doesn't reach a high, I wonder what possibly reaches a high. Ridiculous algorithm. It's as bad as YouTube's ridiculous algorithm. I'm sure of that. But all they did was kick the ball down the road, right? They only kicked the ball down the road because not such a long time later, this happened.
A Baton Rouge man convicted of molesting multiple boys in the 90s is now walking free, released 15 years before his sentence was supposed to be up. News 2's Bess Casterly spoke to the family of 2 of those victims. Bess, they say this Department of Corrections is making a mistake.
Yes, Sylvia, Todd Michael Duquette has proven at least once before that he cannot be changed, molesting another child during sex offender rehab before serving his 30-year sentence. But earlier this week, he was released for being a, quote, model prisoner.
Yeah, he was a model inmate in jail, but when he's in the free world, he's not.
Brittany Melissa is an indirect victim of Todd Michael Duquette. He was convicted of molesting at least 5 boys in East Baton Rouge Parish in 1994, including 2 of Melissa's brothers.
11 days before Christmas, the year it happened, one of my brothers attempted suicide during recess at school. When they asked him why, explained what happened. My other brother coped by molesting me.
We spoke to Melissa in this interview last year when Duquette was up for early release. However, the Department of Corrections denied that release when the landlord changed his mind about housing him once he was free. Melissa was relieved, but this week, all that changed.
Absolute terror.
Despite a law requiring that victims be notified of offenders' releases at least 60 days in advance, she received an email today saying Duquette was released the day before.
There's nothing they could have stopped them from keeping him to 2038. I don't know why they're taking the risk.
The Department of Corrections says they okayed his release because he served more than half his time and was eligible for good time parole according to Louisiana law. And this time around, he has a place to stay upon release. Melissa says she was advised by Duquette's parole officer that he will not be on an ankle monitor unless the parole board orders it.
Keep your kids completely away from him, and if you see him around the child, turn his ass in, because he's not walking around with being monitored.
The Department of Corrections says Duquette will be living at a place that houses sex offenders in New Orleans. He's also required to register as a sex offender with the Orleans Parish Sheriff's Office. In the newsroom, Bess Casterly, WBRZ News 2.
Thank you, Bess.
Yep. And this release happened on June 20th, 2023. And, it's strange looking at his registry. It says that his status, so status 1, 2, or 3, 3 being the strongest, has not even been determined yet. I don't know if that's just a typo or something, but yeah, can you imagine? And his level hasn't been assigned, and it's just, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. And it brings a whole new kind of level when it's our Brandy, our Cajun Overcomer. And please, her YouTube channel link is in the description. She has a Buy Me a Coffee listed there. She does a lot of work in Louisiana. She's doing good stuff. So give her a sub. She's almost at 1,000. Been struggling to get to 1,000 subs. She's at about 850. So let's try to just get her over the hump to 1,000, to the big milestone marker. And I mean, how can you get released after serving 50% of your sentence for doing this? And like they said, when he was in his molestation program, child molestation program, when he did it to another child. It's like, it's just the frustration. It's, you just want to. I just want to scream. I just want to scream on good time, on good time. Now, I know that we've seen many different hearings now where for certain crimes of sexual natures, you're not allowed good time. And it's not clear to me if the legislation has changed and that's why, or if it's different types of certain offenses. It's really not clear. I think that it's that the legislation has changed. And so we can see that things are improving, and probably because of the awareness that's made from, this stuff being on the news. And that's why we got to keep doing this and keep shouting on top of the rooftops, because there are people that simply are in charge of protecting our children that don't care about our children. And you only need to see this to know that and realize that and say, oh my gosh, our system is being run by a bunch of psychopaths. And so much respect to Brandy, Cajun Overcomer, for taking this fight. And you're not alone. We're here with you, Brandy. And thank you for sending this information so that we can share your story and broadcast your story. Of course, we're doing this entirely with Brandy's blessing. And thank you, Richard, for tying this all together. If you didn't see it, you probably wouldn't believe it. You did. And with that, I'll let you go. Now we are about to watch something which is quite different and also very special, very close to my heart, and I think many of yours, because this is a hearing about a close Mandalorian family member, Cajun Overcomer, aka Brandy. This is about a parole hearing that took place in 2019 before they were broadcasting the parole hearings on YouTube. So we're going to listen to an audio version only of it. Please, if you can, pay attention to this hearing. Although we can't see what's going on, we can feel what's going on. We can hear what's going on, and we can listen to Brandy stand up to what's going on, to all the brokenness and disturbing, disgusting nature of this hearing. Let's jump in.